Maid's daughter stole billionaire's private letters. The truth changed her life forever. The brass nameplate on the mahogany desk read, Richard Hawthorne, CEO. I shouldn't have been in this office. I definitely shouldn't have been rifling through the locked drawer I'd just picked open with a hairpin. But desperation makes thieves of us all. My name is Maya Santos, and 3 weeks ago, I was just another college dropout working double shifts at a diner in downtown Seattle. Now, I was standing in a billionaire's private study at 2 a.m., my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The mansion was silent except for the ticking of an antique grandfather clock in the corner. My mother, Rosa Santos, had worked as Richard Hawthorne's housekeeper for 15 years. She'd raised me on stories of his kindness, his generosity, his brilliant mind. She worshipped the ground he walked on. I hated him. Not because he was a bad employer. By all accounts, he treated his staff well. I hated him because 3 months ago, my mother had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The treatment she needed cost more than we'd earn in 5 lifetimes. And despite her 15 years of loyal service, despite the premium health insurance he supposedly provided, the experimental treatment wasn't covered. The appeals had been denied. The bureaucracy had won. Mom had 2 months left, maybe 3 if we were lucky. She'd stopped fighting, accepted her fate with the same quiet resignation she'd accepted everything else in life. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. So when I'd overheard Richard Hawthorne on the phone last week, mentioning something about private correspondence and insurance fraud documentation, something had clicked. If he had evidence of fraud, maybe I could use it, blackmail him, force him to pay for Mom's treatment. I wasn't proud of it, but I was past the point of pride. The drawer was full of letters, all neatly organized in labeled folders. I grabbed my phone and started photographing everything, not even reading them at first, just capturing evidence. My hands shook as I worked, sweat beading on my forehead despite the mansion's perfect climate control. Then I saw the name on one of the envelopes, Rosa Martinez, not Santos, Martinez, my mother's maiden name. I froze, my phone hovering over the yellowed envelope. This letter was old, at least 20 years, judging by the paper quality and the faded ink. It was addressed to Richard Hawthorne at a different address, somewhere in Boston. Against my better judgment, I pulled out the letter and began to read. Dear Richard, I'm writing this because I don't have the courage to say these words to your face. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not dead. I could never do that to our daughter, but gone from your life. I know what you're going to think, that I'm a gold digger, that I planned this, that I trapped you. But I swear on my mother's grave, I never meant for any of this to happen. That night at the charity gala, when you were so kind to the catering staff, when you asked me about my dreams, I fell in love with your soul before I ever knew your name or your fortune. I'm pregnant, Richard, 8 weeks, and before you panic, I'm not asking you for anything. I know what this would do to your reputation, your family, your career. You have a life planned out, a future that doesn't include a Mexican immigrant maid and her illegitimate child. So I'm making this easy for you. I'm disappearing. I've accepted a position in Seattle, across the country. You'll never hear from me again. I'll raise our daughter on my own. She'll never know who you are. I'll tell her that her father was a good man who died before she was born. But I wanted you to know. You have a daughter. Her name will be Maya, after my grandmother. And even though you'll never meet her, I hope she grows up with your kindness, your intelligence, your generous heart. Please don't try to find us. It's better this way. With love, always, Rosa. The letter slipped from my trembling fingers and fluttered to the floor. My vision blurred, my knees buckled, and I grabbed the edge of the desk to keep from falling. Richard Hawthorne was my father. Not some anonymous dead man from Mom's past, not the story I'd been told my entire life. Richard Hawthorne, the billionaire whose office I was burglarizing, the man I'd planned to blackmail, the man whose treatment denial was killing my mother, my father. I wanted to scream, I wanted to vomit, I wanted to run from this office and never look back. Instead, I forced myself to keep reading. There were more letters in the folder, dozens of them. The next one was from Richard to Rosa, dated 2 months after her first letter. It had never been sent. The envelope was sealed, addressed, but never stamped. Dearest Rosa, I've written and rewritten this letter 100 times. Each time I convince myself not to send it. Each time I fail. I found you, or rather, my private investigator found you. I know I shouldn't have looked, that you asked me not to, but how could I not? You're carrying my child, Rosa, my daughter. I've spent every day since receiving your letter torn between 2 impossible choices. My family is pressuring me to marry Catherine Wellington. The merger between our companies depends on it. My father's dying wish was to see this union happen. The shareholders, the board, everyone expects it. But then I think of you, of Maya, of the family we could have been. I'm a coward, Rosa. I'm choosing duty over love. I'm marrying Catherine next month. I'm letting you go, but I'm setting up a trust fund in Maya's name. She'll never want for anything, education, health care, housing, whatever she needs. The account is with Richfield Bank, account number 847292B. When she turns 18, she'll have access to everything. I'm also ensuring you have the best possible position, the best insurance, the best life I can give you from a distance. You'll never know it's from me. You'll think it's just good luck, good fortune. But it's the least I can do for the woman I loved and the daughter I'll never know. I hope someday Maya understands. I hope someday you both can forgive me. With eternal regret, Richard. My hand shook so violently I could barely hold the next letter. This one was newer, dated just 5 years ago. Rosa, I saw her today, Maya, at the coffee shop near the university. She was laughing with friends, her whole face lit up with joy. She has your smile and my father's eyes. She's beautiful. I've watched from a distance for years, making sure the trust fund supports her, that she's safe and happy. But seeing her in person, so close I could have reached out and touched her, it took everything I had not to introduce myself. But how could I? Hello, I'm the father who abandoned you before you were born, the one who chose money and status over you and your mother. What kind of man does that make me? Catherine and I are divorcing. The marriage was always a business arrangement, nothing more. We never had children. Perhaps that was my punishment for abandoning the one child I did have. I'm dying, Rosa. Pancreatic cancer, stage 3. Ironic, isn't it? All the money in the world, and I can't buy more time. The doctors give me 2 years, maybe less. I have so much I want to tell Maya. So much I want to explain, but I've forfeited that right. All I can do is make sure she's provided for after I'm gone. She'll inherit everything, my entire estate, all my companies, all my assets. My lawyers have the documentation. Please don't hate me more than I already hate myself. Richard. Wait, the date on this letter was 5 years ago. If Richard Hawthorne was dying 5 years ago, then I grabbed another folder, this one labeled Medical Records, Confidential. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the pages. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer, diagnosed 5 years ago, experimental treatment, clinical trial, remission. He'd beaten it. Against all odds, Richard Hawthorne had survived pancreatic cancer, the same disease that was killing my mother, the same experimental treatment she'd been denied. I thought I'd find you here. I spun around, dropping the medical file. Richard Hawthorne stood in the doorway of his study, wearing a burgundy robe over silk pajamas. He didn't look angry. He didn't even look surprised. He looked tired and sad. Mr. Hawthorne, The words died in my throat. What could I possibly say? You look so much like her, he said softly, stepping into the room. Your mother, when she was your age, I mean. The same fire in your eyes, the same determination. You knew I was here? The alarm system alerts my phone whenever someone enters this room after 10 p.m. I've been waiting outside for 20 minutes, wondering if you'd find the letters. He walked to the liquor cabinet and poured himself a whiskey. Would you like one? I shook my head, unable to speak. I suppose you have questions, he continued, settling into the leather chair across from his desk. Though, judging by the mess on my desk, I imagine you found most of the answers. Why? The word burst out of me, raw and angry. Why did you leave us? Why did you send those letters but never actually be there? Because I was a coward, he said simply. I told myself I was protecting you both, protecting my company, protecting my family's legacy. But the truth is, I was just protecting myself from having to make a difficult choice. So I made no choice at all, and everyone suffered for it. Mom's dying, I said, my voice breaking. The same cancer you had, the same one you survived, and she was denied the treatment that saved your life. Richard's face went pale. His glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the hardwood floor, whiskey spreading like blood. What? 3 months ago, stage 4. The insurance company denied the experimental treatment. Every appeal, denied. She has maybe 2 months left. Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and angry. I came here to blackmail you. I was going to force you to pay for her treatment. And instead I find out you're my father, and you've been watching us like some creepy stalker, and the insurance company denied her. Richard stood up, his face transforming from shock to fury. That's impossible. I made sure. He pulled out his phone and started dialing. Get me Sarah Winters, now. I don't care what time it is. I watched, stunned, as he paced the room. Sarah, it's Richard. I need you to pull up every denied claim for Rosa Santos in the past 6 months. Martinez. Fine. Check both names. What do you mean there's no record? His voice rose. That's impossible. I personally guaranteed coverage for... You're telling me the policy was canceled? By whom? The silence that followed was deafening. Catherine? He said the name like a curse. When? Another pause. 2 years ago, during the settlement proceedings. Richard's hand clenched around the phone so tightly his knuckles went white. She knew about Rosa. She knew about Maya. And she... He let out a breath that sounded like a wounded animal. Fix it. I don't care what you have to do. Reinstate the policy retroactively. Approve every treatment, every procedure, every experimental trial available. Money is no object. And Sarah? I want Catherine's lawyers on the phone first thing tomorrow morning. This is breach of contract, and I will bury her for it." He hung up and turned to me, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Your mother's treatment will begin immediately. I'll have her transferred to Seattle Medical Center tomorrow morning. They have the best oncology department in the country and access to the clinical trial that saved my life. Dr. Patterson will oversee her care personally. He's the one who got me into remission." I couldn't process what I was hearing. "I don't understand. What does your ex-wife have to do with Mom's insurance?" Richard sank back into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 60 years. "When Catherine and I divorced, she demanded certain concessions, including control over the company's benefits administration. I didn't think anything of it at the time. She was always good with that sort of thing. But apparently, she used that access to cancel your mother's coverage, probably as punishment for—" he gestured vaguely between us, "for you existing. That's insane. That's Catherine." He rubbed his face. "She found out about you and Rosa years ago, hired her own investigator. I never told her myself. I should have. But I was weak. She used the information as leverage during the divorce, threatened to expose everything if I didn't give her what she wanted. I thought paying her off would end it, but apparently she wanted more than money. She wanted revenge. And Mom paid the price. Yes." The word was barely a whisper. We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of 24 years of secrets and lies pressing down on us both. "I have so many questions," I finally said. "I imagine you do. Did you love her? My mother?" Richard's eyes met mine, and in them I saw genuine pain. "More than I've ever loved anyone else in my life. What Rosa and I had, it was brief, but it was real. Every day since, I've regretted letting her go, letting you both go." "Then why didn't you fight for us?" "Because I was 25 years old and terrified," he said. "Because my father was dying and the company was on the verge of collapse, and everyone was depending on me to marry Catherine and merge the companies and save hundreds of jobs. Because I convinced myself that duty mattered more than love. Because I was stupid and young and thought I could have it all if I just kept you at a distance." "We didn't need your money," I said quietly. "We needed you." "I know." His voice cracked. "Believe me, Maya, I know." "Don't call me that." "I'm sorry?" "You don't get to call me by my first name. You're not my father. A father shows up. A father is there for birthday parties and scraped knees and bad breakups. A father doesn't watch from the shadows like some kind of ghost." I stood up, anger giving me strength. "You're just Richard Hawthorne, my mother's employer, and I'm just the daughter of your housekeeper who tried to rob you." He flinched like I'd slapped him, but he nodded. "You're right. I haven't earned the privilege of being your father." "No, you haven't. But I'd like to try." The words hung in the air between us. "If you'll let me. Not now. I understand that. But someday, after your mother is well, after the dust settles, maybe we could get to know each other, really know each other, not through letters or private investigators or stolen midnight conversations. Just two people trying to figure out what family means." I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him to take his guilt and his money and his late life crisis and leave us alone. But when I opened my mouth, different words came out. "Why did you keep the letters, all of them, even the ones you never sent? Why keep them if you never planned on—" "Hope," he interrupted. I kept them because some part of me always hoped that one day I'd find the courage to give them to you, to explain, to apologize. I'm not a brave man, Maya, but I'm not a completely heartless one either. My mother loved you, I said, and it felt like a betrayal to admit it. She talked about you sometimes when she thought I wasn't listening, about how kind you were, how thoughtful. She never once said a bad word about you, even though I don't deserve her forgiveness. No, I agreed. You don't. The next 48 hours were a blur. Mom was admitted to Seattle Medical Center and immediately began the experimental treatment protocol. Dr. Patterson explained that while stage 4 was serious, the new immunotherapy trial had shown remarkable results in patients with similar profiles. There was hope. Mom was furious when she found out I'd broken into Richard's office. Mortified, actually. She tried to resign on the spot, but Richard refused to accept it. Instead, he offered her a full medical leave with pay and a guarantee that her job would be waiting when she was ready to return. If she wants to return, he'd said, looking at me when he said it. I understand if she'd prefer to find other employment after everything that's happened. But Mom surprised us both. I'd like to stay, she said from her hospital bed, her voice weak but determined. If you'll have me. This is a lot to process, Richard, for all of us. But I don't want Maya growing up thinking that running away from difficult situations is the answer. I did that once, 24 years ago. I'm not making that mistake again. Richard had actually started crying. This powerful billionaire, standing at the foot of my mother's hospital bed, tears streaming down his face. I don't deserve your kindness, Rosa, either of you. No, Mom agreed, with that same quiet strength she'd always had. You don't. But we're giving it to you anyway. What you do with it is up to you. The first week was awkward. Richard visited the hospital every day, bringing flowers and books, and once, inexplicably, a stuffed llama that made Mom laugh so hard she started coughing. I watched him watching her, and I saw something I'd never expected to see on a billionaire's face. Genuine love. Not the polished public love of charity galas and photo ops. Real, messy, complicated love. Why a llama? I asked him one day when Mom was sleeping. He smiled sheepishly. On our first date, well, it wasn't really a date, just a walk after the gala. She told me about growing up in Peru, about the llamas her family kept in the mountains. She said they were stubborn and ridiculous, and she loved them. I always meant to take her to Peru to see those mountains. I never did. You still could, I said before I could stop myself. When she's better, I mean, if she wanted to. His eyes lit up with something like hope. Do you think she would? I don't know, I admitted. But you could ask her. That's what normal people do. They ask. I'm not very good at being normal. No kidding. We'd started having these conversations, Richard and I. Nothing deep at first. Just small exchanges about Mom's condition, about the hospital, about mundane things. But slowly, carefully, we were building something. Not a father-daughter relationship. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But something. The second week brought unexpected news. Patterson pulled us into his office with a cautious smile. The tumor is responding to treatment faster than we anticipated. It's shrinking. Not gone, but shrinking. If this trend continues, we might be looking at surgical intervention in a few months, followed by additional immunotherapy. It's a long road ahead, but it's a road with a destination now. Mom sobbed into her hands. Richard stood behind her chair, his hand hovering uncertainly over her shoulder, before finally, gently, resting it there. She didn't pull away. I stood apart from them, watching this scene like an outsider looking in. My mother, my father, together for the first time in nearly 25 years. And me, the reason they'd been apart, the reason they were together again, caught in the middle of their complicated history. Maya, Mom's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Come here, mija. I moved to her side, and she grabbed my hand with one of hers, reaching back to take Richard's with the other. The three of us stood there, in that sterile office, connected by blood and circumstance and the fragile hope of a second chance. The third week brought Catherine Wellington Hawthorne's lawyers. She was suing Richard for breach of contract, claiming that his guarantee of medical coverage for his staff violated their divorce settlement terms. It was frivolous and vindictive, and exactly the kind of thing a scorned ex-wife with too much money and not enough conscience would do. Richard's lawyers were ready. They'd already filed countersuits for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and emotional distress. They had evidence that Catherine had systematically canceled insurance policies for multiple long-term employees, pocketing the premium differences for herself. She's going to lose everything, Richard told me over coffee in the hospital cafeteria. We'd fallen into a routine of these meetings, just the two of us, giving Mom time to rest. Her settlement, her reputation, possibly her freedom if the fraud charges stick. Good, I said viciously. He looked at me with something like approval. You have your mother's compassion, but you have my ruthlessness when someone threatens the people you love. I'm not sure if that's a good combination or a terrifying one. Can't it be both? I suppose it can. He stirred his coffee absently. Maya, there's something I need to tell you about the trust fund. My stomach clenched. What about it? It's substantial, more than substantial. 24 years of compound interest on what was already a considerable sum. When you turn 18, which I realize is in just a few months, you'll have access to roughly $47 million. I choked on my coffee. I'm sorry, did you say 47 million? Give or take a few million depending on market fluctuations. He said it so casually, like we were discussing lunch options instead of an incomprehensible amount of money. I wanted you to hear it from me first, before the lawyers and accountants descend. It's yours, free and clear, no strings attached. I don't want it. The words surprised us both. I don't want your money, I repeated, more firmly. I don't want some guilt payment from the father who abandoned me. I don't want to be bought. Richard set down his coffee cup carefully. It's not a payment, Maya. It's what you were always entitled to. I set it up before you were born, before I made any of the terrible choices that followed. This money was supposed to ensure you never wanted for anything, even if I wasn't there to provide it myself. But that's exactly the point, I said, frustration rising. You thought money could replace you, that a big bank account was the same as being present. You want to know what I actually wanted? I wanted a dad to teach me how to ride a bike. I wanted someone to show up to my middle school science fair. I wanted a father to threaten my prom date and embarrass me with dad jokes. I wanted a person, not a trust fund. You're absolutely right. What? He smiled sadly. You're absolutely right. Money can't buy back the moments I missed. It can't erase the choices I made, but it exists, and it's yours. What you do with it, keep it, donate it, invest it, burn it in a bonfire, that's entirely up to you. I'm just telling you it's there. I stared at him. This stranger who was my father, this complicated man who'd somehow managed to be both incredibly generous and unforgivably absent. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. Mom was released from the hospital in the 4th week, not cured. Dr. Patterson was careful to emphasize that, but stable enough to continue treatment as an outpatient. Richard had offered to let us stay at the mansion in one of the guest wings, but Mom had refused. "We have a home," she'd said firmly. "A small apartment, yes, but it's ours. We'll stay there." But she did accept his offer of a car service to drive her to appointments, and his offer to cover all medical expenses, and his offer of a revised employment contract that gave her actual benefits and protections this time, supervised by independent counsel to ensure no one could sabotage it again. She was setting boundaries, I realized, accepting help without surrendering her independence, teaching me, once again, how to navigate impossible situations with grace. Richard visited our apartment for the first time on a Tuesday evening. He looked comically out of place in our tiny living room, this billionaire squeezed onto our thrift store couch, eating Mom's homemade empanadas and trying not to spill sauce on his $1,000 shirt. "This is delicious," he said, and he sounded genuinely delighted. "Rosa, I'd forgotten how talented you are in the kitchen." Mom blushed, actually blushed, like a teenager on a first date. "It's just food, Richard." "It's not just food, it's art." I watched them dance around each other, tentative, careful, testing the waters of whatever this relationship was becoming. Not romantic, not yet, maybe not ever, but something warm and real and honest. "I should go," Richard said eventually, standing up. "Early meeting tomorrow." "Wait," I heard myself say. Both of them turned to look at me. "There's something I want to say, to both of you." They sat back down, looking concerned. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about the choices you both made, and why, and how it affected me." I took a deep breath. "Mom, you did what you thought was best. You protected me from a complicated situation, gave me a stable life, loved me unconditionally. I can't fault you for that." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "And Richard," the name still felt strange on my tongue, but I pressed on. "You made terrible choices. You were a coward and you hurt people, and you can never get those years back. But you're trying now. You saved Mom's life. You're taking responsibility for your actions. That has to count for something." "What are you saying?" Richard asked quietly. "I'm saying I'm not ready to call you Dad. Maybe I never will be, but I'm willing to try to build something new. Not a replacement for what we lost, but something different, something honest." I looked between them. "If you're both willing." Mom reached for my hand. Richard reached for my other hand, and once again the three of us formed a chain, connected by blood and choice and the messy, complicated business of being a family. My 18th birthday fell on a Saturday in January. Richard had offered to throw a party, something elaborate and expensive, probably involving ice sculptures and a celebrity DJ. I'd declined. Instead, we had cake in our apartment. Mom, Richard, and me. 3 people who'd been strangers 6 months ago, now learning how to be a family. Richard gave me an envelope. Inside was the documentation for the trust fund, along with a handwritten note. "Maya, this money is yours to do with as you wish. But if I could make one suggestion, use it to build the life you want, not the life you think you should have. Travel, learn, create, take risks, make mistakes. Live fully and loudly and without regret. I spent so much of my life doing what others expected of me that I forgot to ask what I expected of myself. Don't make my mistake, and regardless of what you decide to call me, know that I am so incredibly proud to be your father. With love, Richard. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my pocket. Thank you, I said. For the money, yes, but more for the last 6 months, for showing up, for trying. It's the least I could do. No, I corrected him. The least you could do was nothing. You're doing more than that now. Mom served the cake, tres leches, my favorite, and we sang Happy Birthday off-key. Richard's singing voice was terrible, and for some reason that made me love him just a little bit. Later, after he'd left and Mom had gone to bed, I sat alone in my room with the trust fund paperwork spread out before me. $47 million, an incomprehensible amount of money. I thought about what Richard had said, about building the life I wanted, about taking risks. I grabbed my laptop and started making a list, not of things to buy, but of things to do. Finish college, study creative writing, travel to Peru with Mom when she was strong enough, start a foundation to help other families facing catastrophic medical expenses, learn about business so I could help run Richard's company someday, if he wanted me to, build something meaningful, build something real. The next morning, I called Richard. I've decided what to do with the money, I told him. Oh? I'm keeping $10 million for college, travel, and general life stuff. The rest is going into a foundation, the Rosa Martinez Santos Foundation for Cancer Research and Treatment Access. I want to help families like ours, the ones who fall through the cracks, who get denied coverage, who can't afford to fight. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Richard? I'm here. His voice was thick with emotion. That's, Maya, that's extraordinary. But are you sure? That's a lot of money to give away. I'm not giving it away. I'm investing it in something that matters, in making sure what happened to Mom doesn't happen to other people. I paused. Besides, I figured I should probably start acting like a hawthorn, and from what I've learned, hawthorns build things. Yes, he said softly. Yes, we do. So will you help me? I don't know anything about running a foundation or navigating medical bureaucracy or any of it. But you do. It would be my honor. 6 months later, on a warm summer evening, the Rosa Martinez Santos Foundation officially launched. The event was held at the Hawthorne Estate, our estate now, in a way, since Mom and I had finally agreed to move into the guest wing while she continued her treatment. The turnout was incredible. Doctors, researchers, cancer survivors, philanthropists, journalists. Richard had used every connection he had to make sure the launch was a success. But the most important guest was Mom herself, standing at the podium in a beautiful blue dress, her hair grown back in soft curls, her eyes bright with life. 5 years ago, she began, her voice steady and strong, I received a diagnosis that should have been a death sentence. Stage 4, pancreatic cancer, minimal chance of survival. I made peace with dying. But my daughter refused to make peace with it. She fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. She broke rules. This got a laugh from the crowd, and Mom smiled. She took risks. She demanded better. And because of her courage, I'm standing here today, in remission. The applause was thunderous. I felt tears streaming down my face. This foundation exists because Maya believes everyone deserves the chance I got. Every parent should have the opportunity to watch their child grow up. Every child should have access to the treatments that could save their family. We can't cure cancer overnight, but we can fight to make sure finances are never the reason someone goes without treatment." Mom looked directly at me, her eyes shining. "Mija, come up here." I joined her on stage, and she pulled me into a tight hug. "I am so proud of you," she whispered in my ear. "So very proud." Richard joined us on stage too, standing slightly apart but present. The three of us, united in purpose, if not always in perfect harmony. "Before we end tonight," Richard said, addressing the crowd, "I want to share something personal. This foundation is being run by my daughter, Maya Hawthorne Santos. I'd chosen to keep both names, Santos for the woman who raised me, Hawthorne for the legacy I'd inherited, both parts of who I was. She could have used the resources available to her for anything," Richard continued: travel, luxury, leisure. Instead, at 18 years old, she chose to build something that would help others. That's not something you can teach. That's character. That's who she is. He turned to look at me, and in his eyes I saw pride and love and profound regret for the years we'd lost. But I also saw hope for the years ahead. "I'm not a perfect father," he said. "I've made more mistakes than I can count. But I'm learning, and I'm grateful every day for the chance to know this remarkable young woman, to know both of these remarkable women." Later that night, after all the guests had left, the three of us sat on the terrace overlooking the gardens. The summer air was warm and fireflies danced in the darkness. "I've been thinking," Mom said, "about Peru." Richard sat up straighter. "Yes." Would you both want to go? The three of us? In the fall, when my treatment schedule allows. I'd like to show Maya where I grew up. And Richard, you once promised to take me back. Maybe it's time to keep that promise." "I would love that," Richard said, his voice full of emotion. "More than anything." "Me too," I added. "I want to see the llamas." Mom laughed, and the sound was pure joy. We sat there in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. This strange little family we'd built from broken pieces and missed chances and stubborn hope. Not perfect, not traditional, but ours. "I love you both," Mom said suddenly. "I need you to know that. Even with everything that happened, everything that went wrong, I love you." "I love you too," Richard said. They both looked at me. I thought about the girl I'd been 6 months ago. Angry, desperate, ready to break into a billionaire's office and steal letters that would change everything. That girl had been looking for a villain, someone to blame for all the unfairness in the world. Instead, she'd found a father, flawed, complicated, trying so hard to make up for lost time. She'd found a family. "I love you both," I said, and meant it. I really do. The truth had changed my life forever, but not in the way I'd expected. I didn't discover a scandal or a conspiracy. I found something more valuable than money, more powerful than revenge. I found understanding. I found forgiveness. I found family. The letters I'd stolen that night were no longer evidence of crimes or ammunition for blackmail. They were history, our history, painful and imperfect, but ours. And we were writing new letters now, new stories, together. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it binds you to people and places and promises you never saw coming. Sometimes it challenges you to be better, braver, more compassionate than you ever thought possible. Sometimes truth doesn't change your life. Sometimes it gives you a new one entirely. And sitting there on that terrace, between my mother and my father, watching the fireflies dance and the stars shine, I knew I'd choose this life, this complicated, messy, beautiful life, 1,000 times over. The maid's daughter who stole the billionaire's private letters, she found her family. She found herself. She found home.